So I have the Moto crankcase breather kit. It's a undoing of certain things that the EPA requires this company to put on the bikes to be sold and ridden on the street. So we are going to undo that. I'm not telling you to, that's just what I'm doing. You can make your own decisions in life. However, I need to grab some needle nose pliers, so I'll be right back. But this is the guy that we're talking about removing here. This basically, it connects the valve cover, which is where the crankcase vapors escape from the engine, and they are actually fed back into the air boot tract. So these vapors and gases that are expelled from the engine RPM, basically it creates a positive pressure, and the air has, or the gases have to escape. So as the RPMs go up, the more pressure comes out of the engine, and it's actually, instead of fed into the atmosphere, it's actually redirected back into the intake tract to be reburned and recirculated into the intake tract. You can kind of see there, it's kind of hard to see where it plugs in, but if you take my word for it, it actually goes right back into, and this is after the air filter. So it's not into the air box, it's actually into the intake boot there, right, which goes right into the throttle body. So there's just a couple of little, they're not even hose clamps, they're like ring clamps, I guess, or they're kind of hokey. So let me grab some pliers real quick. A better shot of what we're working with here. So it's this guy that we're removing right here, and this is probably a better shot of it right here. That is the guy, the other guy that we're removing, this guy right here. Kind of gotta squeeze them to get them to rotate. But once you got them, they will come off really easily. Undo that front one first. And get you set up here to remove the rear. Yeah, they actually come off very easily. Just got to get them opened up enough to manipulate them and move them. Try not to scratch the frame in the process. There we go. So now you can see I got both of those clamps off. That guy. They're barb fittings because they're gonna fight you a little. But get them. Yeah, I'm gonna need 2 hands for this. Pry them off a little bit with the tip of your pliers. It's a rubber fitting, so it's it kind of gives with your pulling. So the back one is a little harder to get off, but it eventually does come off. There you have it. I'm gonna hold on to this stuff just in case the next guy wants to reinstall it, or who knows. But as long as I have this bike, it probably won't be reinstalled. Okay, so this kit. So to replace that little hose that we just took off, this guy is going to be our crankcase breather tube. This is going to attach to the valve cover with this end. No need to even modify it. In fact, you can modify it on the end. So sometimes if you're riding in real muddy conditions, if you cut these at an angle, they're less likely to plug up. So basically take a 45-degree slice out of it, which is probably what I'll do. But it's not completely necessary. It's just the 45-degree cut actually is harder to plug naturally than just a straight tube, because if this dips down into some thick mud, it theoretically could get clogged. It's unlikely, but it could. So and you don't want your engine to leak. with increased crankcase pressure, the oil will seep out, you know, and create a leak. So it's pretty unlikely. Again, just giving you fair warning. So this is another one of those hard camera angles that I have to kind of improvise, but that's the guy we're putting it on, and I'm using these factory clips. This is not a high pressure deal. Obviously the pressure escapes through the tube, so it's not, you can use a hose clamp, which wouldn't be a bad idea. In fact, I'm gonna see if I actually have one, probably be a better option. So the routing is really important with this crankcase ventilation tube, and where I'm gonna run it is between the throttle cable assembly and the throttle body itself. You can kind of see where I'm going down through there, and I'm going to pull it out through. Again, it's really tough to film because we're in a real tight spot, but if I can pull this guy through here, yeah, ideally you want to keep it away from the exhaust. That's the most important thing. I'm going to kind of run it past the starter and then drop it down through this big old gaping hole in the swing arm that we now have for 25. These bikes used to be, well, they still are linkageless, but looks like they're using the linkage swing arms for everything now, which is really kind of cool. I mean, I get why they're doing it, probably for ease of manufacturing, but looks like less weight to me. So less cast aluminum, less material means less weight, and I appreciate that. For an enduro, these bikes are incredibly light. This bike comes in at 250 pounds wet, if I recall correctly, which is impressive. I believe like the Suzuki DRZ 400 is like 3 bills and some change. Don't quote me on that, and I don't want to upset anybody, but from what I recall. I'm just gonna fit this guy on. As you can see, I didn't forget my clamp. I'm just gonna go ahead and use that factory OEM clamp. There we go. Slide it on as far as it'll go. There we go. So the thing with the clamp is you just want to get it on past that barb that they cast into that nipple that you're putting the hose onto. That's really the most important thing. You can see it kind of flared out on the edge there. See how it gets bigger towards the end? You got to just get your clamp past that. That's the most important thing, because that barb won't allow that clamp to come off without some serious doing. And again, sorry for the crappy angle here. It's just hard to get in there. Okay. This is a silicone hose, not typical rubber, so it's going to be super durable. So now you can see that it's in place, and I'm just going to roll the clamp over so it doesn't hook on anything and cause any problems. So now that it's out of the way, we can get on with the show here. So we still have to plug this nipple on the intake boot side. So I'm going to utilize the cap that comes in the kit. This little guy, it's a simple vacuum cap really. You could probably get this at any auto parts store as you choose. And okay. a game for small hands, which I do not have. A lot of times if you just get the bottom hooked on, the top will kind of go along with you. But sometimes it's a struggle. Alright, so now I've got the little hose, well, not a hose, but a vacuum fitting on the intake boot on there, and it's kind of a bit of a pain to get it on, so I would recommend some grease, which I'm going to do, because it just won't go on all the way by itself. Just want to be careful not to cut it, so just be gentle with it. A little bit of WD-40 will get this thing situated where it needs to go. WD-40. Yeah, it goes on a lot easier with some WD-40. So just push it on. Just kind of help it on all the way. Yeah, it would not go on all the way without some WD-40, so just be aware of that. And again, we're going to use your stock clamp. Also, you can use a zip tie or a hose clamp, but actually this stock clamp is too big. Scratch that. Watch me cut my finger. Not right. Here we go. There. There we go. Just can't leave it alone. There we go. So notice how I cut it, I guess the other way. Like you would think that I would have cut it the other direction. The reason for that is if you're going forward on the motorcycle, I think it's less likely to be packed up if it's cut at that angle. That's just my mind working there. It's not right or wrong, but that's just why I did that. So do as you wish. It's probably overkill anyway. I just can't seem to get this at the angle I'm happy with. There we go. There we go. That's better. I can live with that. So this is kind of an unusual thing to come in a kit of this sort when it's mostly engine based, but also a very nice touch from Moto. I am not sponsored by them. I would love to be, but I'm not. But I do believe in their products and spend my good hard-earned money on them. So, but basically what happens is when this stand is down and then you push, kind of lean the bike over, the stand is actually designed to reset itself and go back up. Could be a dangerous deal because the bike falls over. That would suck. But so what this is basically putting a shorter bolt in and removing this spacer as well. So I've taken the tension off the stand by by basically pushing it up. So now there's no tension on the spring itself. And I'm gonna, got a T45 here. Gotta remove this bolt and replace it with a shorter one after I remove the spacer off of it. This is an optional deal. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it comes in the kit. The bolt comes with Loctite on it, which is a nice touch. Make sure I'm getting you guys the shot. Something you could keep. I'm going to remove that spring. At least unhook the spring. Well, I thought I was going to, but maybe I can do this without it. Basically, this is the guy here. It's got Loctite on it already. See the blue. Nice touch, but you can see the difference between the two bolts. Quite a substantial difference. So I have to remove this spacer. Grab my flathead, my little control screwdriver. Seems like it's under tension. Don't want to break my teeth out.